Hello, everybody. Tahera Rene Christy here with Filter Free with Tahera Rene Christy. I am so excited that you guys are here to join me for another amazing episode of bringing you all the things that you need in order to live your best, most amazing life. We talk about a little bit of everything here, from relationships, business, spirituality, connectivity, self-love, self-care, all of the major hot topics that make the most sense for people who are trying to engage in a growth process for themselves. And I was blessed with the opportunity to meet an amazing woman who is not only a marriage and family therapist, but she's just a cool ass chick. Let's just put it out there. She's really, really just, her spirit is just so peaceful and her energy is amazing. And you guys are really going to enjoy the conversations that we're going to have over this next hour, as well as over the next few weeks. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Erica Hudson. Hi, Erica. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you.
It is an absolute pleasure to bring you to the stage. So let's just talk a little bit about how we were introduced. Yo man said, I saw your podcast and I really feel like my girl is going to be perfect for it. And then I got the opportunity to chat with you for a while and we talked for over an hour just us. We had to get kicked off the Zoom call, just to finish just our intro because the energy was so good. The information was so excellent. And I said, of course, not only do I have to have you on my podcast, but I want to do a series of podcasts with you because you have so much to give and your wealth of knowledge is vast. And I feel like people can really benefit from hearing from you. So I know I gave just like a small snippet of introduction, but can you tell us who the hell is Erica Hudson and why is she so great? Why do we need to hear from you?
I'm Bay Area based. I think that's a part of what makes me so great. And we're all shouting out somewhere from the East Bay, Bay Area. And I think maybe what really like let me kind of connect with you was just the ease of really being able to get down past some of those surface level details, and you were open to talk about how we really even got to the where we are today as we first met. So that was really, really nice to jump into a really authentic connection. So I'm super appreciative to be here today. And I'm excited to talk to you for the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be good. I don't know what folks necessarily are used to when they hear you and they hear who you're bringing on, but hopefully we bring something like just new and interesting. And maybe some folks haven't really thought a whole lot about or heard a whole lot about.
Mm-hmm. And that is the point, to bring experts in their field, but not just the book aspect of smarts, because we can study anything and regurgitate. I love bringing people who have had real life experiences, who have learned from their mistakes, who are okay with making the mistakes or whatever that means. Just living like life, be life in for real for most of us, for all of us. And if you can pull something out of that, a nugget of wisdom in order to help somebody else to not feel like their experiences were not worth it. For me, that is life. That is purposeful interactions and purposeful exchange, because like you, I'm sure as a therapist, you hear it all. And people divulge to me whether I ask or not. Because I'm a good listener, they tell me everything. And just yesterday, I heard somebody who was like, I've tried to commit suicide 5 times. And I was like, oh my God, whoa. And all I could do in that moment was sit there, lean in and validate. And to me, that I couldn't do that, have that level of empathy if I had not experienced some level of sadness that was deep enough that I thought me not being here was better than me being here and working through my problems. So I thank God for my experiences, because it gives me an opportunity to have people like you on who've lived some life, who've learned some lessons. You also have a clinical background to be able to back up what you've learned. So to me, that's everything. So let's get right into it. Like our introductory conversation, I heard so much good information, so many good nuggets about your background and how you became a healer in a very professional sense, because many of us are healers and we walk around helping people, and help by itself is a form of healing, but we kind of either fall into it or we heal and help without knowing how to nourish our own soul so that we're growing in the process of healing versus feeling bogged down with the help that we provide others. So how did you accept your calling as a professional healer? And what was that journey like?
I was chuckling because I was like, I don't know if I fully accepted it all the way. It's heavy, what you're bringing in there, what you're starting with, where folks bring their depths to you, and they bring their sorrow to you, and they naturally open up to you about that. That can be a heavy load to bear, especially if you don't have maybe like some help around, like how do I hold other folks' stuff? How do I like sit with all the things that are happening for people around us? I think, I've been thinking about this. How did it really begin? And I gotta say, like a lot of things in therapy, like I think it started, as a child, really about my placement in my family. And I was thinking about even the role that I might play today in my family, where I'm the one that names something or notices the process of what's going on, the dynamics of what's happening between folks or what's not happening between folks. And I think that was always my natural position. I'm an only child, really smart kiddo, really gifted parents who are, on their A game professionally. So almost being adultified in that way, where I had to act very businessy with them. I had to be, looking right, talking right, being quiet. And so that allowed me the position to be really an observer of what the adults were doing in a lot of boardrooms, sitting there and having to be quiet for hours, watching people. And then just in my personal family dynamic, the way that my parents functioned, the way they didn't function, how they functioned with other folks, and just seeing how people were interacting really, I think, starts to be like that base for the healer, where they even notice folks and what folks are really going through. And it's a kind of quiet, silent noticing. Being able to do something with that, though, I think is where my life's pull starts to come into, like, how do I make this a job? How can I not just be someone over here talking, about something you didn't ask?
Right.
How do I get paid to notice to say what I notice and to really be with folks? So it was just really a natural thing of just where I was in life or who I am as a person. Maybe like we could, call it like an archetype, like the healer. I feel like that's a little bit about what you were describing there in the beginning. The healer, the person who will sit beside someone as opposed to in front of them like their master. The person who, like you were saying, has been through something, who has like lived wisdom and who has experienced pain, deception, failure, success, love, joy, death, right? Who's experienced all those things and can sit with someone and be with them as they figure it out. I think that's kind of how I sit with folks as a healer.
And I hear everything that you're saying, and I agree with you. And I think about the people who get into fields, who study the field, who understand conceptually what the field offers, who have the ability to regurgitate what the field has asked me to regurgitate, but have no connectivity. Case in point, when I gave birth to my twins, I had a male gynecologist. Okay. And I was young. I was like 23, 24. I thought it was the oddest thing that this man was going to tell me what I needed to do to deliver a baby. First of all, as a Black woman, this is a white man telling me what to do with my body, how to do it, when to go in. And he told me to go deliver my babies a week before I actually went in, because I was like, what this fool know? What do you know about what I feel on the inside? Like, I had no connectivity, even at 23, 24 years old, with what this man was talking about, because I'm like, you can't possibly understand what I'm going through. Clinically, I know you probably have the information, you went through school. And then the second thought I had a girlfriend of mine who lost her mom a year before I lost my mom. And my empathy, of course, was so high. I wanted to support her, like you said, sit with her, give her comfort, guidance, the right word. And what she said was, well, you don't understand. You still have your mom. And I'm thinking, but I know what it feels like to have loss. And even when I lost my mom, I'm like, the same thing I said to you then, I say now, because I can empathize on some degree with what you're saying. I said all this to say, to give these two different scenarios. How do you picture and view the person who understands clinically what you're going through, versus the person who has gone through exactly what you've gone through. How does someone extract that support from a place of non-judgment to receive whatever healing they need from that moment without feeling like you have to go through exactly what I go? Unless you're Black, you don't understand what it's like to be Black. There's no way you can help me. How do you extract the healing from what that person is offering through their empathy, even if they've never experienced the same thing as you?
I'd say it's tricky because the truth is, your therapist, your best friend won't know the exact pain. They just won't. I think maybe starting there with, you're right, I don't know what it's like, but I do know, like you're saying, I do know loss. I have like felt like things that I thought I'd never get over or get through. Yeah, I don't know what it's like. I think I just kind of go low with them, not in that like with the stigma around the word low, but I just kind of like sink into like this is sucky. This isn't okay. Nobody does know what it's like for you, and just acknowledging that as opposed to fighting against it and being like, I had 14 deaths, and this is the oppression Olympics, and I've been oppressed too. I'm a lady. Da, da, da. Like that just creates resistance and like, no, let me tell you more about how it sucks. I just admit that you're right. I don't know what it's like for you. I don't, and that must feel like really alone. And I know that. So it's kind of like I can get on a human page at some point, with another person. But it's true. I may not exactly know what it's like. Like if you've experienced something I have never gone through, I won't lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe in those low points in your life, you just want some authenticity or someone to be with you. Period. Just to not have to do it alone.
Since you talk to people every day about what they're feeling, and my husband and I always talk about this generation and how different they are. They're just different. Yeah. They're in their feelings. They feel far more than any other generation before them.
Yeah.
What are you finding people are having the most difficult time with managing mentally, emotionally, spiritually these days?
That it's actually okay to have these feelings, because I think the folks before us had the feelings but didn't know how to put words to them, didn't know if they were even okay to express. So that part that like everybody's actually had them forever, it's what are we doing with them now? That part, like coming up to speed with how do we put it into gear now and get it out of first gear, second gear, third gear.
So if someone is looking to find healing or to be a healer, how do they, like you said in the beginning, you kind of fell into this as a child. How does someone discover that healing for themselves, whether it be through a third party or self-generated?
Yeah, so there's something like interesting here that comes to mind for me. Okay, so the wounded healer or the healer, and the idea that as a therapist, when I sit with you, there's something that happens for both of us, and it's really an exchange. Our interactions, our energy, the unique relationship that we build. That's not in there. And I haven't been doing this for 20 years. I'm still, where am I at? Like I'm 5 years in. So I'm still kind of in the seeing how this actually works and how this actually develops and happens. But what I'm trying to lean into in my practice is that there's change for both of us in that energy that happens between us when we sit together. That this is really unique relationship. It's one of the more authentic and like accepts the complexities of each other relationship. And something special happens in that. And I'm kind of starting to believe it, or just now really starting to see it and feel into it as I grow and change as a therapist. As I look at like old tape of myself from the first year I was sitting with folks to now, but the other part to that I'm really finding kind of like spicy or really wanting to get into is like for myself is that as I go through painful parts in my life, as I go through different successes, that somehow interacts and melts in with who I show up as a therapist with someone else. And they go through things, they go through low points, high points. And I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words for the folks watching and, you know, just listening. I'm like pushing my hands back and forth to where there's this like mixing of energy and it creates this growth for both of us.
I love that. I am also writing into the chat some of the concepts that you're mentioning so that people have the opportunity to kind of respond to that and expound upon that.
Oh, so yeah, that one is really, that's called transference, the transference and the countertransference.
I love that. Transference. And I think that's important. I feel like so many people walk around so broken and so hurt and so unhealed, so trauma driven. You know, my example, because it's the freshest in my mind in terms of people being able to be there for me, because I'm the type of healer who is self-healed. I don't necessarily need to go to church to feel my healing. I go because I enjoy it, and my children go, but I have the ability to manage my own brokenness. When if it's a moment, if it's a situation, if it's for an extended period of time, I am self-sufficient in that part of my life. And I feel like I'm pretty young for even knowing how to do that. But I was told in my 20s that I had that ability. That's my superpower. So that when I come across others who don't have this ability, who have not worked this muscle to learn how to self-soothe. And I've given the example of self-soothing so many times because we have tested to babies, you know, whether they stick their thumb in their mouth or they get a pacifier or a chew toy or something to calm them down. And crying, if you don't get your need met, is a nervous tendency based on the anxiety of not knowing if help is coming, right? So you need something to manage your emotions while you wait, right? So as an adult, our self-pacification becomes sex, it becomes drugs, it becomes cigarettes, it becomes, you know, overeating, it becomes all the things that all the vices, drinking, all the vices we've developed to soothe ourselves while we're going through something that we don't know the ending point of. And so as a person who self-soothes constantly, as a mother of 4, as a wife, as a business owner, there's always something that I don't know what the ending is going to be, the outcome is going to be. What advice would you give to the average person who does not know how to self-soothe in a positive way to be able to manage how they feel when they don't know how the outcome or when the outcome is going to resolve itself, so that they are helping themselves versus self-destructing in the process of the wait?
Yeah. Self-destroying in the process of the wait. Wow. Okay, real quick here.
It's deep because I see it so often, and I have 30,000 examples in my head of what this looks like. Again, having a mom who passed away, and that's like the biggest thing that for most people in their life, if it's not like your mother, it's like your husband, it's your dad, it's somebody close to you. And I can't tell you how many times I'll say something and people are like, oh, I lost my mom 23 years ago. I lost my mom 5 years ago. And it becomes about them. I can say something about my brokenness or how I'm feeling, or I'm sad today because I miss my mom. And someone will be like, yeah, I've been sad for a long time. Like my dad will even do it. He'll be like, yeah, I took care of my dad and, you just got to get over it. Okay. That does not validate my experience. It does not validate my feelings. This puts the onus on you because now suddenly it's about you. And that's okay, because that's why I usually typically keep my feelings to myself, because most people don't know how to comfort someone else from that space. They can comfort from what I need, what I can do, but how do you help someone else when you're still broken?
I don't necessarily think of myself as like completely solved and fixed. I don't think most therapists are, or psychologists are. I don't think that's our point, to come from a high up place of all knowing. But kind of going back to something we were talking about earlier, I feel like folks a lot of time walk around with like a mask, right? A way to deal with life. It's kind of like the example, you can be in an argument and the phone can ring and you can handle that customer service call really nicely and pleasantly and then get back to your argument. There's a mask that we can wear. And I think when we walk around underneath that mask, there's this like narrative or story, that we roll with. And it's for memories, beliefs, our thoughts, our knowledge of self, of others, and it's really like a frozen idea, that narrative. And so I think like if we're just speaking in this context of like when you come to someone like me, you talk with me in therapy, or you talk with someone else, there's there's the there's the idea that we're kind of melting that container, and I'm providing a different or a new container to look at things through, to have perspective shift, which is something we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. But someone to do that work with, where you can take apart and disassemble the machine as it was, or melt that ice, so to speak, and rebuild it, or refill up that cup, that container, with different thoughts, with more seasoned thoughts, with more centered thoughts and feelings, and ways of looking at life and situations, ways of responding as opposed to reacting. I think that's some of the work I'm doing with folks is when you're not with me, how can you deal with life? Because we're not with me all the time, and I'm not, your new mom, and I'm not here to tell you what to do and give advice, right? I'm here to go through it with you. And so part of that is like kind of disassembling, like I was saying, and rebuilding in a more sturdy way, a more structured way that's got a good foundation, it's got good scaffolding, strength and confidence. It's not like a fear-based response is what we built, or a scarcity-based response. We tear those things down, rebuild them, and then you can self-soothe when you're out and about and on your own, because there's an easier tool to grab that's centering you.
Love that. So I want to expand upon what you just said, rebuilding with more structure. What does that look like? Can you give us 3 or 5 tools that we can utilize on a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly basis, to help us to rebuild? Once we're at that low point where we're like, okay, I need help. What are some of the pieces of advice that you could give in a nutshell to give somebody the ability to go home and practice the rebuild process? Because I feel like so many people, especially at the beginning of the year, we're building or rebuilding ourselves, we're rebranding ourselves, we're trying to resolve ourselves. There's all this concept, this energy in the area of new. So how do you rebuild?
Reflecting really on what it's been like. Kind of taking that look in the rear view and turning around fully maybe and seeing what it's been like. And I think something maybe that folks tend to do or might do in their head is beat themselves up on a loop, as opposed to look back with empathy, or with we're just trying to find data and patterns. They look back and it just goes into a negative loop or a rumination, right? And so looking back, doing the review, and then seeing where you are currently, like really assessing what it's like for you in this day. Because then we can see, okay, this is how we got here. This was the road we came in on. Right, we're here now. What are we trying to do differently? What do we want to stop doing? What do we want to continue doing? What do we want to start doing? And then knowing where we're at now, where we've been, what our needs are. Got a little assessment there, and then looking forward, okay, so what do I want it to look like? And that's okay. So in like business language, they'd say, we're having a brainstorming meeting where anything can be out there. Anything, no ideas are bad ideas. We just need to throw everything out there that we can think of, and let's chew on each little bit and see what sticks and what stays. Really looking at what you want your life to look like without judgment of yourself, of others are going to be able to do, what the world is or isn't going to bring you. Really looking openly as possible, which takes a whole lot of courage, because you got to be able to make it up. If you want like unicorns in your fantasy, you got to figure out how we're going to do this, and that takes courage to like say like, no, I want unicorns. Like, actually what I want, or whatever it is that you want to make up. So I think it's kind of like a 3-step, back in the rear view, current day, and then looking and thinking about what do you want to stop doing, what do you want to continue doing, and what do you want to start doing.
I love that. So you have so many, you inspire me, first of all. Every time you talk, I'm just like, ooh, okay. And this is why our conversations go for so long, because I'm like, ooh. As you were talking about all of this, and I did put in the notes, one, reflect on what life has been like with empathy. Number 2, assess where you are now. What would you want to do differently? And number 3, look forward to what can be done. Brainstorm on what sticks and what works without judgment. Those are great tools that I think anybody could pick up and use. I'm going to make a statement that I say all the time to my kids and all the time to people who feel like they want my opinion from time to time. Freedom ain't free. Okay. We all pay for our freedom. We pay for it in one way or another, but either way, there's a cost to all types of freedom. And one of the things that I heard from you in this assessment is the ability to control your own outcome. What I find is most people love the concept of control, and they have no desire to actually take the reins, make the horse jump so that they can go along their way and do what they need to do. They want the title without the workload, right? Of master of my own destiny, boss of my own, desire. They want to be able to be in control, to have the freedom of choice and desire. But you put choice in front of them, it's going to sit on the counter and wait until somebody else picks it up and does it or pays them to do it. And it's you. Ain't nobody going to pay for you to do you. Ain't nobody going to pay. Ain't nobody. And I think that having 3 grown-up kids. And I assess that often of their desire to be in control, but they don't necessarily want to do the work because it's called adulting now. It's now a verb to be an adult. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have the desire to take the reins. So how do you motivate someone who wants that freedom of choice, who wants to go to all the seminars and hear all the sessions and listen to the motivation online, but that next step of the action that's required for that growth, they don't have not the capacity, they don't have the motivation, the intentional motivation to follow through with those actions. How do you motivate the unmotivated?
This sounds hard to answer. I'm thinking like, so am I a mom or a therapist in my head right now?
I think both women are valid because I bring my parenting into my business all the time because I feel like we're all kids in grown-up clothes. And some of the concepts that we learned as kids stick, and some of them are just like, I don't want to do it. And we just don't. And we stay stuck. And then we wonder why. And we're going through this cycle. I get it. As an overweight woman, I have gone through the cycle of losing weight, gaining weight, my whole life. There are times where I'm motivated to do it. I have the intention of doing it. I follow through and I do it. And then there are times where I have lemonade, knowing it's got sugar in it. And that was my choice because I got the freedom to do that. But I also want to lose weight. So which is it? You know what I mean? So for me, I have the empathy, all the empathy in the world. But I want to hear from you what has helped you and what advice would you give to somebody who has the desire for change, for growth, for expansion, but they don't necessarily think that they can do it, or they are motivated to actually lift up the pen and pad to journal or go on that run or talk to that mother or father that they haven't spoken to in 5 years? Like, how do you get them to move?
I think of it maybe with two different lenses, like this, just a thinking lens versus like a feeling into it lens. So when I think about it intellectually, there's like a cycle, a model that somebody awesome whose name is now escaping me created where you can kind of track change. I think it was like a lot of research around smoking cessation and quitting smoking. Like, do you want to quit? Have you quit? How, so in that they found like folks are like at different stages, and I'll be listening for that. I'll be listening for, are you actually ready to change versus I would like to change versus I want to change, but I don't want to change even. I don't even. I'm admittedly doing nothing right now. I don't want to. My doctor says I need to. I don't really want to. And then it switches to, well, I would like to change, but the hemming, the hawing, so there's like little micro steps to getting full blown on the other side of that circle. Did the change, seen it 40 times. Success. So there's stages in there. There's small steps in there first. And so I think maybe the tendency that the average advice that we'll get is really way down the line, and it's a little bit premature from where we're actually ready to be at and what stage we're actually in our change, in our readiness to change. And so, my thing is, as a therapist, is not necessarily putting my finger on it, naming the problem, and saying, here's our solution. You got to just do this, this, and that. Boom. Okay. Call ended. Let's go. I'm a genius. Because it's not helpful. They might not be ready for actual action steps. They may still be, in that pre-contemplation stage where they just kind of want to dip their toe in and think about it, and really staying there and being patient with that process for as long as it takes, slowly moving that dial, as my craft, like helping them move just an inch along and knowing when that's not the time, right? So that it doesn't become a push-pull, a tug-of-war. I know my doctor's right, I should, but I just don't care. So we kind of come out of that, and then they get to have control, because it's up to them to think about, am I ready yet? Okay, I am. When you're talking earlier, I was thinking about like having control in a death grip, or having control as in having a plan. It's got some main bullet points, it's got some sub bullet points, and being able to release control when not all of those things will change. Moving way too fast and then being surprised when all those changes you happen, kind of releasing that and being like, oh, okay, that's that compassionate voice. Like, oh, okay, like I wasn't ready to be at the gym, like a gym rat 6 days a week. I wasn't ready for that life. I thought I was. That looked cool, and maybe, but it wasn't my right now. And not being like really like harmful to self when you realize where you're actually at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how we keep going on change, as opposed to being like, F it, I can't.
And so many of us, I feel, take those extremes where we go, I call it concentrated efforts. I think about I don't even know if they sell concentrated juice anymore, but I know back in my day, you just had a little can of orange juice. You had to do 3 cans of water to add to that in order to have real orange juice, because you try to drink that thing as is. It's so sweet, right? And I feel like that's most of us when we have effort towards something. We'll concentrate that effort into a day, a week, possibly a month, but to make it a habit is just feels impossible, because you mean I got to eat kale every day? You mean I got to go to the gym 4-5 days a week? Like, it feels impossible. Why? Because it's not me, right? It's something I'm trying to get into, but it's not necessarily my desire. Like, I remember, I think this was 10, 15 years ago. I told my mom was always thin. She, was 125 pounds my whole life. Right. And so I remember saying, okay, mommy, I'm ready. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. Whatever you tell me to eat, I'm going to eat it. And I remember getting some tea, and I was going to put some honey in my tea, because I was like, oh, it's tea. It's honey. It's not sugar. It's not. And she's like, see, that's why you fat, because you keep eating sugar. And I'm like thinking, it's God's sugar. Like, what am I doing wrong? And I stopped right then and there. It was over. It was like, you literally tore my whole soul down, and there was no way I was going to keep going. And I think about that situation, not to say anything ill toward my mom, but like you said, the stages of where you're at. Are you just determined to get it done? Because there have been times where I've lost 80 pounds on my own before. I was determined to lose that weight. And it was in like 3 months. It was very unhealthy, but I did it, and I was like happy to do it. But those 3 days of trying, and then one thing said to me, threw me all the way off my rocker. Let me know I was probably not in the I'm just going to do it stage, because one person, one phrase took me away from my concentrated effort of attempting to lose weight that particular time, knowing I've been on and off this bandwagon my whole life. And so obviously there's layers to that. However, I feel like that's probably a lot of us whether we're trying to quit smoking, whether we're trying to stop screwing our ex who keeps screwing us, whatever the situation is, there's always that one thing that keeps us coming back. And we know we shouldn't be in this situation, but I love how you said that. Am I about to fit into getting ready to do it? Or am I all in? Because I feel like there should be gray, but most of us don't play in the gray. Most of us are pretty black and white when it comes to, I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it. I'm going to talk about doing it, or I'm not going to do it. I can talk about talking about doing it, but am I going to actually do it? So I want to transition and talk a little bit about Rooted in the Soul psychotherapy. Because I want number one, for you to get new clients. And I want people to understand what that means and what it is that you offer that's so uniquely different that if you go to any other therapist, you're really out of your mind. I'm just kidding. Like, what makes your brand so awesome?
I think because I'm so nerdy about this stuff, like I geek out. Like you gave me a couple topics and I was like trying to soak up everything from everywhere. I was thinking, okay, what did I learn in school? What podcast did I hear this on? What did I really geek out on all these ideas around like how we tick and what works as humans and what doesn't work and how we get in these spaces and how we get unstuck. And I'm also interested in like more kind of woo-woo stuff, like the unconscious, the subconscious, our conscious, and how all those are at play, when I sit with folks. I think maybe what folks also can get that they aren't going to get in other places is something that I'm noticing when I'm sitting in trainings or I'm sitting in supervision, is that I'm sitting with the majority are white folks. The majority of folks I'm sitting with as psychotherapists, as PsyDs are white, affluent, mostly women, a couple men. And so I think maybe what you're going to get from me, I know what you'll get from me is a different perspective as a woman of color, as someone who has, how would I say this, lived on both sides of those train tracks, where I know what an EBT card is and what a BIC card is. And I also know what, a Eurail pass is. And so having like a really well-rounded experience in life maybe isn't something that you're usually going to get from the typical or average therapist in the Bay Area. And I think people need that. They need someone who understands that physical abuse happens in homes, emotional abuse happens in homes. It's not just hunky-dory Disneyland every 3 months kind of life. That's not most folks every day and all the time. So having that understanding of how it works, that it's not always the same, that it changes, it fluctuates throughout your life. Understanding different things around what it's like to walk through the world as someone with really tan, beautiful, bronzy gold skin, and the drawbacks and the positives around that, walking around in the body that I have. And again, it's not that you'll have the same exact skin tone as me, but it's that understanding that, how we were talking about earlier, understanding that I know that for you to walk through life is really individual and unique experience. And that's really special. And just being able to sit with someone who understands how unique and how special your experience in life is I think really unique. It's definitely not cookie cutter services with no worksheets.
Good. I love that. And do you do online treatments as well?
Yeah, I see anyone living in the state of California, and in person. I'll probably have an office in the spring in either San Francisco or Oakland area.
Wonderful. And what would be a good reason for somebody to see a psychotherapist? Because I'm not sure that I even know the difference between a therapist, psychotherapist. I know psychiatrists and psychologists. Can you break that down for us, what that means? And you've got letters after your name. Can you also explain that to us?
Okay. The BSW, I have a bachelor's in social work, and that's really important to me because social work has a different feel. It's much more reality-based, let's call it, resource-based. What are you dealing with in crisis right now? What are your needs as far as just basic needs being met? Tackling life from that point. And then the AMFT, I'm an associate marriage and family therapist. I'm a couple hundred hours away from being licensed marriage family therapist. And so that part of my degree, I think, gives me that knowledge around how do our behaviors really show up? How does our unconscious and our brain mix with our heart space and our feelings? How do they all show up when I sit with someone and they go through life and I hear about it? And really being able to reflect back to someone what it's like and allow them to have the feeling of not being alone. Not being alone in this world, I think, is really a gift. Why would you come see me? Because life is hard, man. Like, why not? Like, just go tell somebody and let your partner just be your partner, as opposed to treating your partner like your therapist.
Girl, if that's not the line right there, I mean, it's so true that so many of us either want to make our friends our therapists or our partners our therapists. Hell, the lady at the grocery store that's checking us out, she's like, I just $14.95, ma'am. Like, she didn't want to hear everything you had to say. Or even Facebooking our problems or getting on TikTok and just spreading our business that way. That's not real healing.
The main thing you'll get back from me is a real honest response. Your friends are your friends because they love you to death. Your family's your family. They love you so much. They are going to have a hard time being really, really honest with you about what's going on. My interest is in you, the client, the person in front of me, and your best interest. And so that's kind of maybe the difference between telling your friend what's going on and telling your therapist. Your therapist won't lie to you and be like, it's good, girl, you're on your third, this and that, but it's fine. It's fine. I won't tell you that. I'll notice with you that this has been rough. What are we going to do different? Yeah. You know, I'll push you maybe where your friends won't push you.
I love that. Well, this is an amazing first step into all of the topics that we have to talk about over the next few weeks, because we got to get into your story. We got to get into how you became who you are. We share in common a lot when it comes to us as moms and that journey. And I want to talk a little bit about that too. I'm just so intrigued by next week's episode and how we're going to be able to really just help some people. Your love and energy exudes through the screen. And I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to just stop and chat and exchange and lay some foundation for why people really need to listen to what you have to say. And so thank you for taking some time.
Thank you.
And spending it with me.
I appreciate it. This has been pretty cool.
Yeah. So we'll be back again next week. I will list the topic off. We'll do a better job of advertising. I was sick over the last couple of weeks since I was muting and coughing, but that last little remnant is going away so I can be 100% Tahera Rene Christy versus just Tahera.
Show up as you are.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Erica Hudson, for being a great part of this amazing discussion. If you guys would like to be visit Erica, you can actually go on her website right now, rootedinthesoulpsychotherapy.com. I was supposed to have that ticker in the whole time, but I totally forgot. And I was so intrigued in what we were talking about. I was like, oh my God. Definitely come check her out. Her website's right here. And definitely follow, like, and subscribe. Like, we've got all of our Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, all that on there. You can follow me at Tahera Rene Christy, at Tahera Rene. And we'll see you guys again next time. So thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you on the next episode of Filter Free with Tahera Rene Christy.
See you.